Donald Trump's Department of Justice and FBI is collapsing. Donald Trump's Attorney General, Pam Bondi, is becoming even more unhinged during her live TV appearances on state regime media, which calls itself Fox. Every time Pam Bondi appears on TV, it seems like she's going to cry. She yells, she rants, she raves like an absolute lunatic. And as I said, Trump's DOJ and FBI is collapsing as there are more mass resignations, or the Trump regime is engaged in a purge, forcing out any of the FBI agents who are showing moral character or who are refusing to violate the law for the Trump regime. The latest massive resignation comes out of Minneapolis, and the FBI is currently being ordered by Trump's DOJ, by Pam Bondi and Todd Blanche, the Deputy Attorney General, to facilitate this massive cover-up of the shooting death of Renee Nicole Good by Jonathan Ross, a supervisor in FBI's Minneapolis office, just abruptly resigned, we're learning, after bureau leadership in Washington, at the order of Pam Bondi and Todd Blanche, pressured this senior supervisor at the FBI to discontinue a civil rights inquiry into ICE agent Jonathan Ross, who killed Renee Nicole Good. And such inquiries that were being taken by this senior FBI agent are a common investigative step, but the Trump DOJ ordered the FBI investigate the widow, go after Renee Nicole Good's widow. We're also learning that the Trump regime DOJ wanted to get a search warrant, which was rejected by a federal judge, to go after Renee Nicole Good's wife, and not a search warrant to actually investigate what happened in the vehicle or what happened with Jonathan Ross and what actually went down with the murder, in my opinion, that took place, and I think in your opinion as well. So at this point, we've seen over 3,000 either resignations or people being pushed out of the DOJ. We've seen similar numbers at the FBI. Federal courts continue to look at the Trump DOJ with absolute disgust. Democrat, Republican, appointed judges alike are looking at this Trump DOJ as utterly
pathetic.
I mean, you have that Trump appointed judge in the Eastern District of Virginia, Judge Novak, who said to Lindsey Halligan, Trump's former United States attorney for the Eastern District, who was disqualified and not allowed to hold that title because she was not actually appointed, but she pretended to hold that title. A Trump appointed judge said, I'm going to take away your bar license, Lindsey Halligan. Pam Bondi, I'm going to take away your bar license. Todd Blanche, you signed this. I'm taking away your law license right now. And then Lindsey Halligan finally tapped out and said, okay, I won't be the Eastern District attorney anymore, but this is such a weaponized system. Yeah, weaponized by Trump appointed judges. How utterly pathetic. So you had Attorney General Pam Bondi making the round. She went on state regime media last night and she started whining about Don Lemon. And she goes, Don Lemon is an online agitator. He used to work at fake news CNN. We're coming for you, Don Lemon. So Don Lemon, I'm sure you know the story by now, independent reporter. We love Don Lemon on the MeidasTouch network. He was reporting from a church where a protest was taking place because of the affiliation to church leadership of an ICE official who was apparently working at that church. Lemon was just filming and reporting from the scene about what happened, and the Trump regime filed criminal complaints against the leaders of the protesters, then altered AI images of the leader of the protest, which again is complete misconduct and likely will be a grounds for dismissal. But they were unable to secure a criminal complaint to be signed off by a magistrate judge against Don Lemon. And so now Pam Bondi's like, we're coming for you, Don Lemon. I mean, we know how inappropriate this is for an attorney general to go on a state regime media, or set aside that, to go on any TV and to say this. This is the exact opposite of law and order. This is what happens, to use the phrase of the Trump regime. This is what truly happens in banana republics. And this is what the law and order turned upside down looks like. This is complete injustice. This is what you expect to see in Russia. This is so utterly pathetic. Let's play this clip.
His commentary, obviously in support of them. Does the fact that he claims to be an independent journalist, does that factor into the law at all?
Well, he's an online agitator. That's what he is now. And Sure, if you're a journalist and you're covering a story, that's not what he was doing. We all know that. We have the video. It speaks for itself. He was in there with all these other people. If you were in there, if you protested and went into that church on the Sunday and you terrorized the parishioners, we are coming after you. That pastor is a wonderful man. I met with that pastor. Sean, these people were staged sitting in the church as well. Then they burst in through all doors, including Don Lemon, and started harassing and antagonizing and terrorizing these parishioners. A woman ran out the back door, scared to death, and broke her arm. We are coming after you if you participated in that. I don't care who you are. If you're a failed CNN journalist, you have no right to do that in this country. We don't live in a third world country. We're going to protect our houses of worship in this country.
And by the way, we're hearing right now from the Hennepin County attorney, Mary Moriarty, about what she learned about this resignation by this top FBI official within the district where she is a top prosecutor. And she talks about this prosecution and her investigation into Jonathan Ross, rather, and she'll announce the next prosecutorial steps. But she discusses here how the Department of Justice refuses to share any information with her office. Let's play this clip.
I just heard about and read about the resignation, as I think many people did. It tells me that a professional investigator, an FBI agent who was a career agent as opposed to a political appointee, thought that it was appropriate to do a complete investigation and send it to the Department of Justice. But people who didn't know as much as she did about the investigation decided to order them to stop the investigation. And the only thing I can think of is that was for political reasons. And I think it's hard to understand, and I think the public should be disturbed that there isn't an investigation, as there should be, as there is in Minnesota. Anytime a state peace officer takes the life of a person, there is a complete and thorough investigation, a decision about whether charges are appropriate, and transparency.
What could you tell us, Ms. Moriarty, about timetable for your investigation, the Hennepin County investigation?
So we are doing the investigation in tandem with our state law enforcement agency, the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, the BCA. As you know, we created a public portal so that people could submit evidence because we were not receiving evidence, and I'm guessing we're not going to receive any evidence from the feds. And we received substantial information there that is helpful. So the BCA continues to investigate and interview witnesses, and our hope is to gather all of the evidence that we think we can gather and then be able to make a decision about whether charges are appropriate or not, and then announce that publicly with transparency so that the public understands exactly what happened here.
And by the way, you want to see what the DOJ and DHS is focused on, who they're going after? They're going after now little 2-year-old girls. Now, this follows them attacking 5-year-old boys. We all know the story now of them going after Liam Conejo Ramos, who the Trump DHS used as, who Trump's ICE and Border Patrol Gestapo used as bait to lure out his father. Then they attacked the father and said the father abandoned the son, when they used the son as bait to attack the father, and then sent them both to concentration camps in El Paso, Texas. They've done the same to a 2-year-old girl. Look at this 2-year-old girl. How horrific is this behavior? Her name is Chloe Velasquez, and her father is Elvis Joel Echeverria. And you can see just take a look at her. I mean, just how utterly horrific. This 2-year-old girl was detained, and the story behind it is just absolutely sickening. Agents allegedly used chemical irritants and flashbangs as they detained her. There was a court order at 8:10 p.m. saying you cannot touch this family. Stay away was the court order. But then the Trump regime, lawless, completely lawless. They went right after this family despite there being a court order. And that's Pam Bondi. That's Todd Blanche. That's Kristi Noem. That's Donald Trump. That's this despicable regime. And as Donald Trump expands his invasion with ICE and Border Patrol into other states, of course, we see what's happening in Minneapolis and in St. Paul. We shouldn't forget that he's doing this in other states as well, perhaps not on that scale. But that doesn't mean that at any moment Trump ramps it up there. So I want to zoom in right now on Bernalillo County, which is a county in New Mexico. That's where Albuquerque is located. There's a big governor's race coming up in 2026. And I want to speak with Sam Bregman, the district attorney of Bernalillo County, which again includes Albuquerque, who's running for governor in this 2026 election. I want to speak with you as well about some of the statements you've made recently. Just, you haven't been afraid to stand up to Trump. You put out statements recently about what ICE is doing. And if ICE engages in this behavior that we're seeing elsewhere, you said you're not going to hesitate to prosecute them. So talk to us about that. And I want to talk more broadly about New Mexico and the governor's race. But talk about standing up to Trump with your position as the DA of Bernalillo County.
Listen, I think everybody across this country can agree that what we're seeing with ICE is horrific in so many different ways. And certainly it's unconstitutional, but it's also a violation of state law. If ICE comes in without a warrant, without reasonable suspicion, without probable cause, that is false imprisonment in New Mexico. You can't confine, restrain, or detain someone without proper legal authority to do so. And there's no exception for law enforcement as well. So we are going to hold ICE accountable. And if people commit felonies in my county, I'm going to prosecute them. And I'm very concerned with I don't know if it's the training, perhaps it is the training, but I'm very concerned with the way they are handling things right now. You cannot pull someone over because they're brown or because they speak Spanish in New Mexico, which is a majority minority state, pull them over for no traffic violation just to check to make sure they're a citizen of the United States. That is unacceptable conduct at every level. In fact, if they have no warrant, reasonable suspicion, or probable cause, it's a felony. And I am the chief law enforcement officer in the county of Bernalillo, city of Albuquerque. We're going to make sure people abide by the law. There are laws out there to make sure people follow them. And I don't want New Mexico going down this road. I can't accept it. We can't normalize the idea of throwing the Fourth Amendment and throwing all of our criminal laws out the window to appease ICE. It's not going to happen.
Right. And you hear the Trump regime officials, I think in a kind of textbook authoritarian way, they go and say, but look, all we're trying to do here is get the sex offenders off the street. We're just going after the pedos. Well, first and foremost, we know that the majority of these arrests that have been taking place in detentions are people who have never been convicted or even accused of crimes in the first place. But, as the district attorney, the way to combat trafficking, cartels, drugs are through joint task forces where the feds work with state and local officials. And as I've always been emphasizing on the show, if the federal government wanted to bolster task forces to go after things, that would actually be something that I think would be welcome. That's the way past administrations have done it, and that's what you can actually do. But they're actually making things worse because they're pulling federal officials actually off of the trafficking and cartel stuff. And instead, they're putting resources into terrorizing people who are not convicted of crimes. And I think you have an interesting perspective of that as the top law enforcement officer there, because you know how these task force works and what the priority of this Trump regime has been.
I have special agents in my office that serve on federal task force. We get that. We understand how police are trained in New Mexico to abide by people's constitutional rights. Extremely important. But let me tell you, this whole operation of attempting not only to do unconstitutional things, but also to actually scare the heck out of everybody is having the opposite effect when it comes to crime fighting. I have a victim of rape who's not going to testify because they're so afraid that part of their family will be deported if they come forward and testify in a courtroom. It doesn't help when it comes to fighting crime. To the contrary, it's the worst thing. And let me say this, I will prosecute anybody who commits a violent crime. I don't care what their legal status is. We want to prosecute them. We hold people accountable here in Albuquerque the best we possibly can at the DA's office. But this operation, this kind of just pulling people over and kicking down doors without a warrant, without reasonable suspicion and probable cause is unacceptable. And we're not going to continue to put up with it.
Let's talk about Albuquerque more broadly and expand it out to the governor's race that you're running in. I mean, New Mexico, like numerous other states, every state, whether they're red, blue, purple, or whatever, has come under attack by this Trump regime. The government no longer like providing services or help, it seems. The priority is attacking and ripping away, whether it's healthcare services, whether it's jobs, whether it's making things more expensive. So there's broader issues, and New Mexico's had to weather that. Can you talk to us just about what you're seeing, especially on your campaign across the state, of what people are experiencing? And then let's talk about your plans.
No, absolutely. You know, New Mexico is the most amazing place. But the last thing we need right now is Donald Trump doing things that directly hurt New Mexicans. You know, the attack on democracy speaks for itself, and we actually just spoke to some of that. But for example, healthcare, the big, beautiful BS bill is what I call it, and what it did to Medicaid. We have a state that individually is a poor state. The folks here, 40% of our population's on Medicaid, and they're cutting millions and millions of dollars on an already fragile healthcare system here in New Mexico. I mean, it's just almost a sense that it's just being mean for the sake of being mean, hurting people for the sake of hurting people. I mean, that's what we're getting out of Washington right now with Donald Trump. I mean, attacking vaccines, going after vaccines, and all of this. Healthcare is obviously one. Affordability. Tariffs and the effect that tariffs have on the price of goods affects every New Mexican. I mean, some New Mexicans are barely getting by, and with Donald Trump and what he's doing back there continues to have real effects on New Mexicans. I mean, affordability in every way is driven a lot by some of his policies going on right now. Civil rights. I mean, you know, the whole National Guard threats to everywhere across this country is scary. People are scared. People are, you know, times are tough for a lot of people. And then to be kind of put on top of all that, this whole scare stuff that we're going to have a militarized city or state or country, or we're going to have military in the streets, National Guard in the streets, ICE wearing masks everywhere. All of this is building up to make for a very uncomfortable situation for far too many New Mexicans. And that's why we need real leadership in the governor's office that's going to stand up, push back, fight when necessary in every way, call them out when they're doing wrong, make sure they understand they can't do that to New Mexicans, and actually fix a lot of the tough problems we're having in New Mexico, like crime, like education, healthcare I just mentioned, economic opportunity and affordability. All these issues are really important, and Donald Trump isn't doing anything. In fact, he's doing a lot of things to cause a lot of damage.
You know, as the top law enforcement officer in Albuquerque, someone who's tough on crime, I just would love to get your perspective too. When you hear basically every single day, Donald Trump is pardoning somebody who is convicted of a major fraud, convicted of drug trafficking. I mean, think about it. Juan Orlando Hernandez, one of the biggest drug traffickers around, who worked with Chapo and said, get those drugs up the gringo's nose. I mean, Donald Trump pardons that guy. Donald Trump pardoned a company and its CEO, Binance, that pled guilty to using their crypto funds to basically help sex traffickers and terrorists, is what they pled guilty to. He just pardons these people. Pardon. You just hire the right lawyer, or you give Donald Trump some money, and boom, you get the pardon. What's your perspective on all of that?
We have a lot of amazing law enforcement officers that risk their lives capturing these individuals, risk their lives every single day. And God bless them for what they do to get these kind of criminals off the streets. And I can tell you, we're working on the drug trafficking every day in New Mexico. It's a problem. And then it's such a slap in the face. It's like whiplash going back and forth. You literally pardon a guy that was just gone through all the due process in the United States. You pardon a massive major drug dealer, you pardon him, and then you use the same excuse to go after somebody else down south. It's mind-boggling, and it's disrespectful to every law enforcement officer out there that works so hard to make all of us safe, whether that's a federal law enforcement agency like the DEA or local law enforcement who just get up every morning and protect and serve. It is very, very frustrating to see someone who talks a tough game every now and then about law enforcement, but disrespects them on a daily basis.
You know, you hit upon something that before we go, I want to make sure we hit though too. You just said, like, why are they being so mean? Like, just something that's I've said that resonates with our audience is like this behavior by this Trump administration, which I call a regime. And I'm like, it's just evil stuff. It's nasty. It shows to me a disdain and hatred for this country. And I go, and I know, look, you've got a lot of great policy papers out there. That's what your campaign's also known for. And it's really important, right? I also think, though, too, what you hit upon, though, is just these people are doing bad things and they're hurting people. And that's not what a government should be there for. And that's one of the strange things, because you have all these media companies out there and news companies and everything trying to use language from the past to deal with this moment and kind of gamify the politics. And I'm like, this is new terrain right here where the government has declared Americans the enemy from within, and they're attacking us every single day, which is why you need tough people like you standing up.
I can't say it any better. And there's just a streak of meanness in it. I don't know. I'm pretty sure it's coming from the very top, but the entire administration, you're right. The cruelty of let's just cut back Medicaid by hundreds of millions of dollars and see how much damage we can do. The cruelty of this whole ICE roundup. Let's just see how many people we can scare to death. Let's see how many young adult women we can pull over who are by themselves and have a guy with a mask on walk up and say, "Show me your papers." This is a crazy world we're living in right now. It's not the America I grew up in. It's not the America I want to see my grandkids grow up in.
Where can people learn more about the campaign and any final message to our 6 million subscribers?
Absolutely. So Bregman, BregmanForNM.com. Please go on the website. We've got a bunch of policy up there. And if you like what we're having to say, please feel free to donate as well. But also I just want everybody to know that New Mexico is an amazing, wonderful state. And we're going to push back and fight against Donald Trump every single time. We're not going to put up with it. And I feel very strongly about that we have to have tough people who are willing to come out and speak out and push back. So that's exactly the kind of governor I'm going to be.
Sam Bregman, Democratic candidate for governor, currently the Bernalillo County District Attorney, New Mexico. Great to see you.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Want to stay plugged in? Become a subscriber to our Substack at MeidasPlus.com. You'll get daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, ad-free episodes of our podcast, and more exclusive content only available at MeidasPlus.com.